Okay, I pressed go live, but we're probably not live just yet.
All right. It just popped up something on my screen saying going to a third party, so we might be live.
Okay, I pressed go live. Yeah, I think we're live. Let's see.
All right.
I'm just gonna be spreading the link. All right, where should we begin, sir?
Well, how about um we start with just the general history of natural hygiene and your knowledge on it.
Okay, well, yesterday I posted a video that kind of goes into it, but basically, I think the very beginning, which I didn't mention in the video, was Pythagoras and Leonardo DiCaprio. I think they were.
I like
Oh, sorry,
Pythagoras.
not
He has some
Leonardo
good quotes.
DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci. DiCaprio.
That's not the same person.
Yeah. No, if we were talking celebrities, Woody Harrelson, I think got it very close. I've also posted a repost of,
I saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no. And a long time ago, I edited a short of him saying how he would put his kids all raw if they're sick. Like he would tell them, go all raw. But anyhow, so yeah, so history, I would say, starts off with, yeah, Pythagoras and Leonardo da Vinci. I think we're really into it. They were mentioning it. Oftentimes they were like fruitarian. Um, but then at the same time, those Greek like philosophers would also indulge in like medicine type stuff. So I think Da Vinci didn't. I don't, I'm not 100% sure. You'd have to go back and check. But what I am sure is in the more contemporary times, I think it was like 1822, Dr. Jennings was famous for being a physician and he didn't really want to drug his patients. He saw that his patients weren't getting any better. So what he did was he gave them a placebo pill and basically said the only way this will work is if you fast while doing it. So if you only drink water while doing it, and yeah, and so the people they were flocking to him because everyone was getting cured. And with this magic pill, so there was like a huge thing, how it got real popular. And yeah, so he was curing all these people, and little did they know they were curing themselves just with water. And he was just giving them the protocol to do it. And later he revealed that, yeah, these pills are blank. So it's all you guys just curing yourselves. And well, the opposite side of that is these drugs and these pharmaceuticals are either slowing down or killing you. So they're either slowing the healing process to milk you for your money or they're killing you. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're adding the toxic load. I don't know. Maybe you want to respond to that before I talk about a few other people?
Yeah, sure. That actually goes back to this a little bit, and one of the opening sections in this book right here. I showed it on the screen like when the live streams first started.
Hmm.
Uh, the history of natural hygiene, um, by Hereward Carrington and Herbert M. Shelton.
Hmm.
I ordered it off of Amazon. I mean, I don't really support Amazon, but you can get it there. And there's this part right here. And Sylvester Graham, it says he's it opens up and says that in all probability that Graham bread that's been popular until a few years ago was named after Dr. Sylvester Graham. I don't know what Graham bread is, but I'm thinking of graham crackers. I don't
Yeah,
know.
pretty sure. I think it's similar. I think I don't know. It was some kind of good grain. I think it was spelt bread too. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, graham bread, something like that.
Yeah, I usually go for spelt if I have any kind of bread.
Yeah, I do you still listen to Yaki? And Yaki says there is like it's glutinous. There's gluten, something related to gluten in spelt, so it's not the best. But I
Right.
know he talks about how quinoa, he has like a list, amaranth, and a few other things that are the better grains. But
Yeah,
anyhow, yeah. So Sylvester Graham was very into like he got into like vegetarianism. He was a Presbyterian preacher. And like
I
he was
thought it was interesting.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
very famous for the cholera epidemic because in New York, I think 1832 or something like that, um, they were saying like the medical community was obviously saying like don't touch each other, stay inside, close the windows. You know, you have to cook all your food because these germs are all over these fruits, so on and so forth. And he was saying the exact opposite to that. He was saying, open your windows. You need more fresh air. You need more sunlight. You need to eat more raw foods. And so all the people that were listening to him were fine, but the people who were listening to the medical community were dying in droves. So that's Graham. And then another guy was, I think, what you were about to talk about, or what you showed me, Thatcher Trowell, something Thatcher Trowell or something. He was like,
yeah,
he was the main guy who like basically like systemized the arguments. Like he what do you call it? He like really tightened it up, like the natural hygiene argument or the Turing model argument against the medical community, and gave a lecture in the Smithsonian to high dignitaries, so on and so forth. And then he was like his two main points were number one, the medical system is false, and that it's like the philosophy is not right, it's not in harmony with nature. Um, it does more harm than good. I think he even said it's a curse, and that the natural hygiene system is the exact opposite of that. It's a blessing, it's helping people, so on and so forth. And then, real quick, I'll just mention the last most notable person, in my opinion, is Florence Nightingale, who started the nursing profession. So during the Crimean War, she was helping the British injured soldiers. But, if they came to be hospitalized in their, soldier, whatever, soldier hospital, they were dying more, like the rate of death was probably higher if they entered that hospital than the actual battlefield. And so what she did was and like give them water, which their medical policy was not to give water to the patients. Open the windows so fresh air because it was all stale air in their facilities. Um, and then the drugs that they were giving them, she withheld, so she stopped the drugging, and that and the eating, which was the most important thing, she stopped them from eating. So some cases she would let them eat little, but they were overfeeding the patients, right? Thinking, oh, they're ill, so they must get better by eating lots of food. But no, so she would either withhold lots of food or withhold food altogether. So yeah, and that started the nursing. She was the first nurse, basically.
yeah. I found that story pretty cool, and like I I was listening to that video earlier today that you posted, and I found it profound how she's the one that started uh Seventh Day Adventist. You said,
Oh
is
yeah,
that the same lady?
Ellen White or something was also a
Ellen White.
yeah, something
Okay,
like
that's not the same lady, but
oh no, yeah, not the nurse.
she's still a hygienist though, right?
Oh yeah, so the Seventh Day Adventist founder, it was a hygienist. So I found that interesting. I don't know too
Yeah.
much about Seventh Day Adventist denomination, but it's just funny how that works.
Yeah, no, I find that interesting because they're one of the only Christian denominations that like promote um a vegetarian diet.
Oh
Not that
really?
not that I support, Seventh Day Adventists. I mean, they do have the day right, you know, like they do have the actual Sabbath day, and they talk about that
Really?
is the day you're supposed to observe that's biblically accurate versus Sunday,
Interesting.
which they have the day right. But I
Hmm.
mean, there's a whole lot of other stuff with Seventh Day Adventists where, I mean, I don't subscribe to any church, but
Yeah.
anyway, there's a part right here I wanted to bring up that
Okay.
was like about your original point, and it says, um, in his in the chapters of his book, chapter 12, we come to the general rules of hygiene, and the succeeding 11 chapters are devoted to the question of diet and food reform.
Mm,
And in these, Graham elaborates his arguments in favor of vegetarianism and even a fruitarian diet. He was, in fact, one of the first to show the scientific basis on which fruit, frugivor, frugivorous diet rests. I would just say frugivore diet, but yeah, that's profound, you know. Like he was really spearheading that whole thing back then. And I mean, I imagine, you know, like if Pythagoras and, you know, Leonardo da Vinci a long time ago were basically preaching the same things, like um, how, you know, there's those quotes, but anybody can look them up. They're really good. It's like some of Pythagoras's poems, and like he says, don't let your uh, body be a graveyard
mm.
for
Yeah.
all of the living animals, and you know, like don't rob the eggs from the poor birds' nests and stuff. You know, it's like
Uh,
those kind of things. I mean, we gotta kind of start realizing too. Um, there have been biblical sects. There's been uh, all spiritual cultures around the world. They have different divisions, and a lot of the original divisions in the spiritual societies in the world and the religions have been about meat eating.
mm,
There's even some really interesting stuff I shared on my group chat about possible vegetarian, like that the apostles and Jesus himself were even vegetarian, and it was like
yeah.
one of the original teachings of Bible. And we talked about when we had that conversation the other night on the phone
Mm,
how the Rastafarians have uh, followed the Ethiopian Bible, which is the most complete, has 88 books, and they are uh, one of the few that still practice like a strict vegetarian diet. So,
mm.
you know, like you probably know about idol foods and stuff they talk about in Jamaica.
What's that?
They call it idol, uh like idol foods or idol.
Like dead food?
Well, it's like they say ITAL. It's like vital kind of. It
Oh,
reminds me of like vital. So like it's all about eating living foods, and they said original idol cooking in Jamaica was they would take everything from the jungle and from their natural gardens, and they just throw all the ingredients in a pot basically,
oh, I
and, you
see.
know, and cook it up. Like that kind of eating is like basically they try to go like from the land as much as possible.
Mm,
There's a even like this video I saw, this old Rastafarian guy, and he had like white dreadlocks, and like his
oh,
face looked like it was almost glowing, and he was like, recently I've just been trying to eat stuff straight from the jungle and not even cooking it. So it's
mm.
like I feel like there's levels of depths to what we're talking about in all the different cultures around the world. It's just like through the indoctrination and through the I feel like it's even like depopulation campaign, you know, that's been going on for years.
Yeah, it's definitely
Like,
an attack on the genetics of humanity, that's for sure.
yeah, but I don't want to go on like just a tangent and get off the subject.
What's the subject?
Natural hygiene, you know, I want
Oh, I see, I see, I see.
to, yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, wait, what were you saying just a second ago? You were talking about how, oh, the Rastafari and yeah, I mean that kind of, I don't know, throwing in the pot, that kind of boils it down to nothing. I don't know. I mean, I still eat cooked
Yeah,
food from times to time. Like for instance, if I'm in
me
Korea,
too.
it's really hard to get quality fruit, and it's really very expensive too.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like there are better foods that, like for instance, even Yaki talking about like how there are better grains that are will in small quantities not be so acidic. Um, yeah, I mean, I think if you get like a root vegetable from the jungle, it's probably a lot better than some sprayed farmed thing. So I guess there's levels to that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think the original argument still stands though, that like once you start cooking something, it's already like showing you that it's such an extraneous process and it's not something you're meant to do. Like what animal in nature cooks? And at the same time, it's like enzymes die at like 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but like we're cooking way beyond that. Like so you're eating these denatured proteins, these denatured enzymes, and you expect your own genetics and your own cells to not be denatured. I mean, I think that's very foolish. So
Yeah.
yeah, the other thing is like when we're preparing our foods, like for instance, when you cut onion, your eyes are like watering and like you feel like crying. Like same with garlic and stuff too. Very spicy if you just ate it raw. These are all signs of toxins, or these are all signs of our body from the first glance rejecting the foods. And another thing I like to look at is like after you eat the food, like let's say you use plates or whatever, how easy is it to wash it off? Because a lot of
Yeah. That too. I, I noticed that.
Yeah, because like a lot of foods, if especially if it's oily or if it's very starchy, it like will like glue stay on whatever you're eating. And same with like yeah, oily stuff. When you're washing it, it's like, you have to use this extra crap to get it off and all this. It's that shows you that that's how much work your body has to do. Like already you've crossed over the threshold of foods you should not be consuming because nature hasn't given it to you raw with all the enzymes, the microbacteria, the microorganisms that it needs. But yeah, so I think that's another way you can kind of look at it is during the process of preparation or cleaning, how difficult is it, you know?
Yeah. Because I mean, our bodies have to clean themselves out at some point too. And if we're eating um stuff that's like, you see it sticking to the plate and you can't wash it off after it
Yeah.
dries up, I mean, that means if you aren't getting enough water and you're dehydrated too, especially, or if you're smoking, like that's gonna dry up and do the same thing to the inside of like your organs. And I have that thought a lot, and I had like over the years, I've I used to smoke a lot more weed than I do now, and like over the years, I noticed how it's almost like I feel like one of the reasons why um I mean weed may not have like the side effects that like drinking does and stuff, but like the munchies or whatever, that comes with it too is like that I think may be the most destructive thing about it.
Mm,
It's like the way people kind of like become so unconscious and like dehydrated. So like I think part of it's dehydration, but
definitely.
also it's like and your body's wanting to rehydrate itself through the food that it eats, but also there's something else there. Where like I know that cannabis is like anti-parasitic in a way, so like if you're dehydrated and then you're having the parasites feel like they're dying off at the same time.
Mm,
I've had that thought for a long time. Like, yeah, it seems like people that it's doing them a bit of good because it's eliminating the inflammation and it's letting them feel good, but then they're also experiencing like their parasites maybe dying off a little bit and the dehydration of their body, and then they just do more damage than even the good that because people want to say it's like a cure all or like whatever when you smoke it. Like I smoke it for my glaucoma or like whatever, but it's like if you go and just stuff your face afterwards and you smoke like bowl after bowl or joint after joint, then you're really not you're doing yourself more harm than good.
yeah.
think it's something that people have to really, that's a hard truth to swallow for some people. I know it was for me for a little bit, but like everything has a consequence of like that we put into our body. And we are what we put into our body. It's like what you were saying in the video you made earlier today. It's like everything that we everything we put in our body is is part of who we are, and everything we put into our body is part of our environment. So yeah, it's really interesting how we can just, and when we're fucking up our body, we're fucking up the environment too at the same time, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely,
And
man.
it's like you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, because if you're eating fucked up stuff, you need a fucked up environment to create it, right? So, but yeah, so
Yeah,
on the topic of cannabis though, yeah, I think I'll still smoke a joint from time to time with friends, like just because it's like a
yeah,
social thing.
me
But
too.
yeah, Yaki will say you should ingest it, that smoking is heavily acidic to the lungs. Dr. Morse talks
Yeah,
about that too, and Dr. Morse says like if you're gonna smoke, make sure you eat lots of fruit to alkalize
right.
this that you're creating, so on and so forth. I mean, it's a tough one because I'm not sure where psychedelics stand in to all of this natural hygiene stuff because
Yeah,
it's like it's like I guess you could call it a form of herbs, but like perhaps there's like a difference because it's like mentally kind of aligning you, but all in all, it's still a stimulant. So
yeah,
perhaps not, like now, the more I go, I feel like a fast would be a lot more how do you say, authentic and original, but at the same time, it's like mushrooms kind of budged me out of my old lifestyle. So
me too. Yeah,
yeah, it's a tough one to just say it's this way or it's that way, but all I can say really is that, cannabis is an herb, and the thing with natural hygiene and herbs is like I honestly think it's more of like air. So I think herbs were created for us because they do things to the air, also to the soil too. So I think herbs are good, but they're not good in the sense that we've come to interpret them because
yeah,
again, it's a stimulation factor. So we're constantly looking to stimulate ourselves, and we see this stimulation as, oh, because I've stimulated and I've gained a small spurt of energy, it must be good, but that's not true. It's the stimulation itself is using up nerve energy, and that's really what it comes down to in natural
yeah,
hygiene is how much energy do you have left over in your nerves. And so
right.
with the fruit and the raw stuff and the fasts, it's all replenishing nerve energy or using very little and leaving very little waste behind. So from that standpoint, yeah, it's probably best to stay away from these things. But I don't know. When it comes to the
Yeah,
psychoactive effects, maybe there's a place for it. I'm not 100% sure about that.
yeah. I feel like there's a time and place for everything. I think where we really get in trouble with most things is doing it to an excess. And some things are a lot easier to have in excess than other things, like meat, even for example. And it's actually really, I think, really profound here. It says like, um,
Keep going. I'm just gonna pee and come back.
with this is a quote from the book, and I'll read it again when Eugene comes back so he can hear it. Is intoxicating liquors and substances with all their fatal energy to destroy and all the tremendous evils that they have done, and surely they're great, terribly great, have still caused less disease and pain and ultimately death in the human family than the errors in the quantity and quality of our food. A
Yeah,
drunkard sometimes, though very rarely, reaches old age, but a glutton never does.
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was powerful when I was just reading it before we came on. And he does uh, mention Hippocrates, or is that how you
Hippocrates.
say it?
Hippocrates?
Hippocrates, yeah, I knew I was saying it wrong. Excess in drinking, said Hippocrates, more than 2,000 years ago, is almost as bad as excess in eating. And he's like, that statement holds true to this day because the diseases and everything that are caused by our excessive eating, um, you can see like the high cholesterol, the fatty liver, the heart attacks, the everything that comes along with the the being a glutton, like that really does shorten your lifespan, it seems, than almost anything else. It's like
Oh yeah.
I don't know what that's about. And like almost when you eat more, I think most people could come to terms like when you eat more, it seems like you need more food. Like the more you eat, the more hungrier you get. I mean, some people they might laugh at that, but like
Oh
the
no, it's
more full
scientific
you stuff
true.
yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like your stomach stretches out and whatnot. So
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, because you were talking about drunkenness and you're coming from cannabis. Bob Marley, for example, he talks about how, alcohol, no, because it gets you drunk. And then he talks about how cannabis in this world where everything is so chaotic and so confused, it gives you some space for yourself, like when he's talking about
yeah,
cannabis. And so yeah, he also talks about how it's a herb and stuff too. So yeah, I mean, if you compare it like that, I think cannabis is a lot less of a thing of a bad thing than alcohol,
yeah,
and
for sure.
perhaps especially the more original strains, like not the hybridized monsters that everyone's like it's just to get you high, kind of a thing.
Literally fries your nerve energy, like you're
Yeah,
saying.
and
I
so
I noticed the difference when I grew my own weed for the first time. It's like, man, this is like I don't know, these seeds were ones that my friend actually cultivated through his plants. He breeded them. And
hmm,
like they were probably, hybridized to an extent, but like just the fact that I grew it in my backyard with my
yeah.
own living soil, and I didn't spray anything on it. There's a huge difference. You can feel the difference in the effect that it gives you in your mind, in your head, and whatnot. So
I
yeah,
mean that, and then that's a great segue into food because
right.
I mean, Lauren doesn't really go into the farming aspect of it so much, but I really do think that back then we wouldn't have to eat as much. I think that calories is a very short-sighted way of looking at the whole nutrition thing, although it could be very important as well. But our food now, I think, is like so depleted. Like it's so much less than what it was before, especially if it's grown in like a
Yeah,
very commercialized, standardized kind of way. I think that the yeah, so the one thing that natural farming doesn't mention too much. Oh, actually, Shelton, I remember did mention a little bit about having better soil and stuff too, but is the way in which the food arises. Because yeah, I mean, we're also talking about excessive eating. Well, you almost have to kind of eat in excess right now, I think, if you're
yeah,
get into natural hygiene because it's a lot of calories that you need to be filling. So that's why you got to like find calorie denser foods like banana or whatever that you can do to fill in those calorie needs. Because if you don't, you're going to keep wanting to, crave those rices and whatnot. So a lot of people, their problem is they don't eat enough when they try to transition into these diets. And that
yeah,
another great thing you should think about is when you eat like rice or grains or basically anything other than real sugar and fruit, you're actually starving yourself. So when you eat a lot of grain, you're not actually, so the hunger sensation is not quenched. It's just that you're so stuffed you can't eat anymore. That's why we get this thing where we want to keep
yeah.
eating. But notice, like, like for instance, pizza
But
or
you feel full, but you want to keep eating.
exactly. So that's a
Yeah,
contradictory. It already shows you what you're eating is not real food. Whereas
yeah,
if eating fruit, you'll get sick of it real quick. I don't know if you've
Right.
noticed this, but if you eat lots of food, like it's very quick to when you just don't want to eat anymore because it's not just filling you. What's happening is the blood sugar is rising, and as the blood sugar is rising, and your hunger naturally decreases. Your brain secretes hormones of saying, "Okay, I'm getting full." But that only happens with this simple sugar. I think with grains, it's maybe a lot. It takes a lot longer. I'm not really sure what the whole sugar thing is with that, but basically, it's just giving you diabetes. It's not giving you the fullness or nor the nutrition. So. Yeah, that's another thing that I think people should consider.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting about, well, I want to say something first, and then I want to say something about the subject of herbs. But recently, I have been getting um, like the past couple months, and like when I've been working my job at Kroger, I'll I'll make sprouts.
Hmm.
Um, I got a bag in here somewhere. And, I was gonna show it, but I don't know. I'm not gonna rummage around right now, try to find it. But you can get like a bag like this big of like alfalfa seeds,
Hmm.
and they're sustainably grown, from somebody that doesn't do like any spraying or anything. You can get them for like $15 on the internet. A bag this big, and it's got thousands and thousands of seeds. I've had it for over a year now.
Hmm.
I've made so many jars of sprouts, and the sprouts, which is crazy to think about, is like it's so much. I think that's one of the best survival foods out there is
Hmm.
sprouts, because you can get more nutrients than like when the plant is like even in its grown state. Or I think I've heard that sprouts are one of the most nutritionally dense, like at least as far as like greens that you could eat. And I usually lean on that. And I have like avocados from the store or whatever. I try to buy organic ones when I can and stuff. And even organic nowadays, though, they use organic pesticides and stuff. What's an organic pesticide? Like I mean, I I actually grew some of my own burdock fruit though,
Hmm.
and using the leaves off of my cannabis plant too. There's really something powerful about the the herbs too, like in their natural raw state. If you juice burdock leaves or you juice the cannabis leaves, I do feel that there is like the minerals that we need that we're not getting from our uh that are depleted in our foods in the stores and stuff. And your body knows when it needs it, like you can feel like when you get the minerals that you need from this stuff, and it helps you detox and everything. And you may have been on a fast for like 10 days, but you have some uh nothing but like if you take like some grape juice and like some water, and then you juice the cannabis leaves into it, and you'd be 10 days into a fast, you'll be on the toilet like in a couple minutes. Like I had that experience uh probably a little over a year ago. I i did the longest fast I'd ever done before, and it was like 16 days. I've been getting into more like dry fasting, and like back then it was just juice fasting I did for the most part. I think I did maybe 1 or 2 days out of the 16 where I did dry fasting. I mean, if there's anything that I feel like has really changed my life, though, is the preservation of the genetic and nervous system energy, like in your body, and the combined with the fasting. Like they're both two things that I feel like can change a person's life, but when you combine them together, I think that's like really where the power comes in, because I think like even the herbs, they have a place before when it says the herbs are for the healing of the nations or whatever. I, the in cannabis, I know like the anti-inflammation is powerful alone just because it could take away from the inflammation of like the heavy metals and stuff, and then you would be able to detox them easier, you know. And then once we get back to that natural state where we have our like fresh fruits and stuff, and we are in a state where we don't need healing, that'd be almost like where even though natural hygiene is powerful for healing, I think that we could live in a state where we just needed to eat. Like the only thing we needed to eat was like a fruit, like grown in our immediate area.
Yeah, yeah, that is natural hygiene. So just
Yeah,
eating what's easy, and I think I told you like what a baby would eat. So yeah, like I used to think that we would need these minerals and stuff from these herbs, but now I think differently. I think that it's a stimulation thing. So just like as if
yeah,
a heroin addict were to say to you, I feel better when I'm on the heroin, or, I feel like it's doing things for me. I'll give you an example. I think it was Shelton or somebody talking about how, herbs are not great. And they were giving the example of peppermint. So
yeah. Peppermint.
someone had a headache and they ate peppermint and the headache went away. And so did the peppermint actually help the headache? Well, yes and no, because what's happening in the body is that the peppermint itself is a poison. So the body is now trying to get rid of the peppermint, and in getting rid of the peppermint, it raises its the heart rate, and so your blood's pumping faster, and so basically the inflammation in the brain that happened in the brain is pumped out faster. But the root cause for the inflammation that happened in the brain was not helped by the peppermint. So it's like, yeah, again, it's like morphine or any of these things that they would
Or
take.
like aspirin too. I mean, even like it's
Ev-
just thinning your blood, right? Aspirin.
So the
So
I
you don't have as much pressure in your brain, but it's not really a good thing.
so yeah, everything we try to do hurts us basically. Everything outside of the natural diet and fasting hurts us. And so, you know,
Yeah.
me and Jack were talking about this, but the highest form of healing is nothing. We keep trying to put something and uh, neurotically try to treat ourselves with this and that. But the time the body actually heals, the root causes of it is when there's nothing. That's when after 72 hours, you get like cells that are like baby like. So like the cells that would come out when you're a baby and you're first growing, those kinds
Oh,
of cells come out after a certain period of not eating. But this is the thing. It's like with the herbs. Yeah, I think it's a dangerous, dangerous path also because I mean,
yeah.
like like for instance, if there's like some kind of a illness in your body and the herbs seem to have stopped some kind of symptom. Again, it's the same thing as medicine with these drugs covering up the certain symptoms. The body
Yeah.
has cured the actual illness, the cause. What the body has done is closed shop on the excretory location that it decided to, express the illness. So disease is just an outlet for whatever illness, whatever inflammation, whatever metabolic waste, whatever toxemia inside to come out. So what herbs will often do is they'll stop the certain area of where the excretion is happening and carry it somewhere else because the body is saying, alert, alert, emergency, we have a new poison. We have to stop our current efforts and shift it to something else. So once I read about that and heard about that, I think that makes a lot more sense, especially the way Yaki and Dr. Morse are selling so much. And then like I remember this time where I was uh cooking herbs and making tea, but I was just keep doing it. I was thinking I'm gonna get more out of it. And sometimes I'm just looking at herbs and seeing how it just sits there and it's gathering dust. Like it just didn't make any sense. And these
Yeah.
thousands of dollars that they're charging people, they're super rich, Dr.
Yeah.
Morrison, Yucky,
It is
and
the charlatan thing in a way. I
it's
I
snake
feel like people gotta admit it.
it's snake oil, man. And so this is the thing, like morphine and heroin and cocaine, it's gonna make you feel great. It's gonna stimulate you. It may even redirect your symptoms to a different portion of the body or for another time, but don't fool yourself. It's just like those people who say, I don't feel sick, so I'm okay. That's usually because of young age or because the body hasn't even had a chance to start detoxification. So it's just doing a half-assed job. So, for instance,
Yeah.
I'm short on this. Someone who's living in a polluted environment, like with bad air, oftentimes they'll go to a place with good air and they'll experience detoxification because their body had no chance to actually, target those poisons because it's constantly in a saturated environment with, saturated
Al
poison.
Almost like the analogy of a fish, that's like swimming in uh, a polluted uh, ocean or something. It can't really get away from the stuff that it's breathing in, or it can't see the water that it's swimming in. So it's really murky to somebody that is not in that part of the ocean, or like us, but to the fish it's normal, you know. And I think it's the same kind of way when you grow up in a environment where you eat all the conventional foods, you go and you get the antibiotics from the doctor and the vaccines and everything. It's like if you don't if you're used to those kind of things and your body's always being stimulated in a different way or having to always deal with a different toxin, like you're saying, then it's almost like firing all cylinders. And I mean, at a certain point, your body just does its best to deal with the environment that it's in. But if it has the resources, like the fresh air or whatever, to get rid of it, then you're going to start seeing those symptoms. And I think that I want to add in uh, one more thing about the herbs, and then uh, we could move on to something else. But I was thinking while you're talking about that, and yeah, to use in excess or to use all the time, I think, especially after you got your body to the point where it can regenerate, and like you're in a state where because man, nothing compares to the amount of energy that you get from like a 72-hour fast, especially or like a 72-hour dry fast, like that kind of energy you can't get from any food. You can't get from any herb. Like that is you can feel your body regenerating like you're saying, and like you have more energy. But at the same time, if a person's body is like already in the process of like where it's low on vital energy, or like there's so much toxins in the system, I think that's where the herbs do come in as almost like a buffer, like in a way, like how a person, like what you're saying is a pretty good analogy with like a person that's addicted to heroin, right? If they get off of it too fast when they're like a heavy user, the detox will kill them. So like I think that's kind of where the herbs come in, where they're for the healing, but they're not what actually gives you the life that makes you heal. You know what I'm saying by that? Like it helps the process go along, like kind of like a buffer, like kind of can subdue your symptoms, slow down the process of detox if you're like or direct it in a way to where like you're not overworking your kidneys or your liver or something.
Yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's again a dangerous argument because it's saying like poison in moderation. But that's the thing, like I've read in these books
Yeah.
too. Poison is poison, like a
Yeah.
little, a lot, so it's better just to not, it's to do with away with them altogether. But that, yeah, that's a good question for the heroin addiction analogy. Like if you're taking a lot of these substances and then you suddenly stop, will it kill you? Perhaps. That's a good question. I'm going to ask Lauren. But I think also perhaps
It
not.
does happen though. That's a fact. Like people in those rehab centers, like
Mm.
they'll if they get onto a like if a person takes them off of it too fast or doesn't give them something to replace or flush it out of their body,
Yeah, I
like
would
if they were to just to go cold turkey by themselves or something, they die. It's
because
actually
I
pretty
would think
sad.
that's the case if they're eating trash. But I think if they're eating
Me
good,
too.
I don't think that would happen because again, a lot of these cases, these people like 40,000 people each, Dr. Shelton and Dr. TC Fry have cured. And a lot of these cases, they're coming from a place where they're, on the brink of catastrophe and they completely
Yeah.
drop whatever they're doing. So I think it's very possible. That's essentially what the fast is for, is a fast track healing process. But, I have to add though that I do not recommend dry fasting because that's how a lot of people have died in these vegan vegetarian communities, and
Yeah.
and that's why we get a bad rap because people are saying, oh, look at these vegans, for one, these vegans are eating trash, so they're like, just because you call yourself vegan doesn't mean you're eating high quality foods, living foods.
Yeah.
Number
And
two, again, these dry fasts, 99% of people are dehydrated right now. I'm not saying
yeah.
uh, they're going to be dehydrated. They have been, they are dehydrated right now. So what that means is from a dehydrated state, if you enter a dry fast, man, how taxing is that organism?
Hmm.
Plus,
Yeah.
when the toxins do come out, because trust me, they will, especially if you're not eating anything, imagine how concentrated those toxins are. So you have to drink lots of water, and the best is distilled. I used to think spring was the best, but again, it's adding more weight and more
Yeah.
mineral matter for your body uh, to figure out, and it can kill you. So
Yeah.
you need soft water or light water, which will help you dilute. So the solution to pollution is dilution, to dilute these pollutants as they come out of your body. Now, I will say perhaps someone who is very clean, very hydrated, has been on a fruitarian diet for X amount of time, perhaps they can dry fast. I'm not sure about that
Yeah.
because that's a different circumstance. But
I
we
hear
just,
you.
we just have to caution people on this whole dry fast fad because I've done it before. I've done a 72-hour or almost 72-hour dry fast, and
Yeah.
it's a fad. That's what it is. Just like these herbs, it's a hype train. It's a jump on the bandwagon type thing. I don't support it any longer. It's very counterintuitive to what the body needs. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because it is like 70% water. So
yeah,
I do hear you on that one.
because we can't
I
go long without water, So
yeah. And I do think there's definitely something to the distilled water thing too. I agree with you on that one. Because I've heard that before too. You want to get distilled water because all the sediment will build up in your kidneys and stuff over time. Like kind of like how sand settles to the bottom of like an ocean after a period of time.
man, and if you see the bottom of your distiller after you distill a few times, there's like this thick white goo. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
horrible stuff. Anyhow, um, yeah, so water is super important, but a lot of these natural hygiene resources will talk about how if you're eating rich in, if you're eating living foods like fruits, then you're getting lots of water, so you don't need to drink much. But Lauren doesn't seem to think that. Lauren seems to think that no, we should actually still uh, drink lots of distilled water and hydrate alongside with that. But I think there's some leeway to that. I think that the people that have been doing well for a long period of time, they probably need less. I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I will say for me personally, I think coconut water is the way to go. Like
I lean on that a lot too. I mean, I
yeah,
get it from the store, but you know,
yeah, perhaps great. I'm not sure about that one, but yeah, to me, coconut water seems because I mean, I just don't like the whole process of using a machine to get my water, you know? But in Korea, there's no coconuts, so that's
yeah.
the best way I can see.
I You got to be careful with coconut water too, though, because most of them they do have sugar in it. It'll say less than 1% sugar or whatever, but I mean, like that's still processed sugar, still poison.
Yeah, no, I
So
never buy coconut water. It's only what I get.
yeah, I I mean, I do uh buy the coconut water that is just coconut water,
Mm.
and I drink that a lot. And I usually
I
get
think
like,
it's pasteurized though.
yeah, yeah. I mean, everything's pasteurized in the store. That's sad. I liked when I had my juicer. I recently broke it on accident, so I'm getting a new one soon. But uh, yeah, I think juicing is really powerful, and I think that's probably the most hydrating stuff you can get. Is probably just like the from the fruits and from the living waters of the fruits. And yeah, if you can get fresh coconuts, like the water from the actual coconut too, tastes a lot better for you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, on the topic of juicing though, after a fast, I think Shelton has put people on juice in the beginning, but they do tend to also advise against juicing just because our body is so, because Dr. Morse always goes into how juicing's so good, juicing's great, like we invented juicers, blah, 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 we don't need fiber, blah, blah, blah. But if you
Hmm.
think about it, like the fibers are slowing down the food so that you can adequately take out what you need from the food. Like
Yeah,
there's a certain timing of everything. And
it
so, again,
hydrates you more actually when you eat the fruit than if you're to juice it.
yeah, and also
Some
like
cases.
juicing can even cause like diabetes. I don't know if that's far-fetched, but like there's something with how your sugar spikes when you're juicing versus when you're not juicing. And so there's these kinds of things. So again, the argument for natural hygiene, guys, is simplicity, right? So when you go out and you enjoy your apple tree or your durian tree or whatever, that process is divine. That itself is whole. So that's why the whole food is the highest order because you're not adding all these processes, you're not making it causing more oxidation, you're not losing any of these minerals and nutrients and destroying enzymes and stuff. It's in a whole state. And so the human being, again, has to become whole again, has to become holy, holistic. And so how do you do that? It's wholesome food that's going to take you there. It's wholesome living that's going to take you there.
Right.
So just remember that that's the most divine thing, really, is going up to like a fruit tree and taking the fruit in its whole state without any extra processes of cooking, of preparing, of cutting. Like, for instance, my grandma will always cut the apples up for me, and I hate that. It's like, I
Mhm.
understand that it's like love and it's, same with cooking and stuff, that it's like energy and time, but we have
Yeah.
to remember, I know that we're all emotional and we want to give love in these, ways, but that time is best spent, not spent at all. Because like just real quickly, I feel like I'm rambling on now, but like cooking, for example, like imagine how much time we have left over, how much energy we save if
We
we're,
didn't cook.
yeah, if we didn't cook like
It's
this.
most of the reason why I don't cook. You know, I mean, I'd like to sometimes, but it's easier in my schedule, and I can do more stuff if I just eat some sprouts and get something uh fresh and available, like just to eat raw, and it makes me feel better too. Like I don't feel like so if I'm eating at work because I usually work like all day, pretty much like 1 to 9. So
Mm,
if I eat at work, I don't want something that's gonna like slow me down and like
mm.
make me feel like groggy if I got to keep working, you know?
Definitely, definitely. So, yeah, what else should we get into?
Well, I did have something I was just thinking of, and I want to bring it up. Is I had like two trains of thought going. One I forgot, but I was gonna ask you. So, in the natural state, like natural man, right, and an ideal natural hygiene state, where would we get like the closest thing to distilled water from? Because we haven't always had distilled waters. I think we would get them from like a natural underground aquifer, kind of like one that's like a deep one, a primary water, not like the secondary uh aquifer that like where they drill only so deep, and it's kind of like rain and snow melt off, but like the where it's actually filtered through the multi layers of gravel and rock and being pushed up through like the mountains. That's where I feel like we would get our water from, like naturally, if we were in the wild. What do you think about that?
Now I
Like
think those
primary water.
now I think those waters are just for the trees, and the trees will give us the distilled water. But I mean, back then
Yeah.
it would have been rain. So right now it's so polluted, so it's not a very
Yeah, you
good.
can't drink rain no anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, but before supposedly rain is a very soft-ish water, and were some spring waters that are soft water. So again, what is soft water? Soft water just means the mineral or whatever content is almost is closer to empty than it is full.
Yeah.
So yeah, any kinds of softer waters would have been the best. And again, I think the best argument is the distilled water and fruit or coconut water or something along those lines because as of now, if you were not to use a machine, that's probably the most optimal way in this polluted universe where we can get
Yeah.
cleanest source of water. I
Yeah,
imagine.
it was more of a hypothetical question, I guess. Like in the in God's design or whatever, like how man was originally intended to live. I feel like, and I guess I could see that like rainwater, or like the I guess the some spring water. I guess more like soft water. So like I think that's where the primary water versus the secondary water springs
Yeah,
kind of comes in.
I really think it's the fruits, man. I think
The
God,
fruits, yeah,
yeah, I think God intended us to be thoroughly hydrated with fruits. And there are fruits, for instance, like cucumbers or watermelon or other melons that are very, very hydrating. So
definitely,
I
yeah.
they were supposed to be meant for water. And it's interesting how a lot of these melon types, like cucumbers and whatever, they're not really meant to be eaten with anything else. Another great thing
Mhm.
Yaki goes into, the great half-truther that he is that you shouldn't
Mhm.
eat melons with anything else. And at the
Yeah,
same time, you shouldn't mix your super acidic, so your super like for instance like citrus with like only sweet. But you can mix sub-acid and sweet with anything else. They're the middle ground. But for instance, you don't eat dates with
yeah,
oranges, or I think bananas with oranges are not good either. So these super sweet stuff, you don't mix with that kind of stuff. But anyhow, the reason why I was getting into that was melons you don't mix with anything. And so I think that that was purposeful because I think by design it's like a plain water source. And
yeah,
a lot of these native cultures in is because Philippines says the same thing, Saipan says the same thing. They call the coconut the tree of life. And my friend who's in this Negro Occidental Colonia Divina, the fruitarian farmer guy, he said that his grandpa said that the coconut water is the only thing that will not be contaminated by bombs. I don't know, this just randomly came to my mind, but
wow,
does he like
that's
suspect
pretty
that there will
interesting.
be like times of war and Russia will cause war with somebody, like maybe it's China, US or something like that? and that there will be a time where things could get war torn, but the only thing that's safe is the water behind the thick skin of the coconut. And so, yeah, I think,
Wow.
and yeah, they call it the tree of life. The Filipinos do. The Saipanese, they call it the tree of life, the Chamorros. So I think that that was meant for us. In the same way, I think that the tropical environment was meant for men, because as things get overly cold, especially for people that are not that healthy, it really inhibits the body to heal itself. And it's just not an optimal place to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. If food combining is powerful stuff. I've been practicing that for years now. And I ate my last piece of flesh, when I was 17,
Wow, yeah.
and I was like 3 months from turning 18. And now I turned I'm 22 over there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
turned 22 tomorrow
Oh,
over here. So
oh, happy
yeah,
birthday. What the hell?
right on, man. I guess it's a birthday stream, man. Thank you for the present, Eugene.
March
It was an
1st. Huh?
awesome talk.
So
I like the way that sounds too. I
yeah,
feel like
you're
out
first
of all my
Marcher.
friends, yeah, hey, you got it, man. Out of all my friends and all my family, I feel like I'm kind of the one
The pioneer.
that I marched first into all this kind of territory, and I don't know anybody here I've lived in like 5 different states throughout my life. I've lived in Ohio, Georgia, Kansas, Washington, and now in Illinois. And I
Mm.
have not yet to meet a single person that's like completely vegan.
Well, I was in Illinois
Closest,
not too long ago. I just missed it.
really.
Where's your favorite place from all those places you've been?
Uh Washington State has really beautiful mountains and
Okay.
trees. Um, but I can't really say I have a favorite. I do like the nature out there. It's a lot more wild. And like I think there's an interesting dilemma that is kind of in America where like if you go too far out west, the housing and everything is so overpriced.
I
And
see.
if you're in a city over there, it's especially um it's polluted and overpriced. So why would you even go? And then over here on the East Coast, it's like seems like it's just been so polluted over time, and
Mm.
like the industries are all along the East Coast, and I mean even the oceans. I'm like here on the East Coast compared to the West Coast, you can tell like the difference of like how clean it seems like the environment and out in nature in the mountains, like the oceans are compared to on the East Coast. But then I feel like if you're in the middle somewhere, like maybe in Idaho or like I know Missouri, right below Illinois, has some of the best homesteading laws,
Oh,
um, where you can do a lot of things without um, with your land and stuff without regulations and crap getting in the way. But I do feel like there's a lot of opportunity in America still, but it's kind of yeah, like the Americanization and like the culture of everything is kind of just like the most destructive part about uh about America, probably.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like America has a lot of potential, but it's just that
Me too.
like so much of like whether it's the music, the movies,
And brainwash.
yeah, the brainwash, the education. I mean, it's just
Shit.
crazy. Even the
I
law, man. I've had a bad run-in with a police officer too, like with my head being bleeding and all this kind of stuff. Like it's just
wow.
it's just a horrible place, man. Like it's so heartbreaking because I feel like even the people, it's so diverse and there's so many like forward-thinking people there. Like from even when it comes to natural hygiene, I'm pretty sure most of the hygienists are in America. So it's just a very unfortunate thing. And you're talking about housing and stuff and all these rules. It's all so stupid, man. The way humans are living and conducting themselves is just so redundant, stupid, and inefficient. and
Yeah.
so against the ways of, I think, how we were meant to live. We're supposed to be in a community. We're supposed to be sharing. We're not supposed to be so
Right.
self-oriented. Not that you can't take self-initiative, but we're just so like everyone has their own car, everyone has their own laundry machine, everyone and they practically use it like 20% of the time it should be being used. Like the way things
No
are,
one.
even in Korea, Korea is just like Asian US, it's just crazy, man. That's why there's a romantic thing when I go into like rural areas, or for instance, my favorite community in the Philippines. It's like it's slow paced. People are a lot more closer to each other. It's community based, and if there were lots of fruits there, man, it's
Yeah, you
far
can go
from
to the
pollution.
market actually. There's actually a market you can go to.
I mean, there isn't actually the Colonia de Vina because it's so far out that there isn't like
Mhm.
a place you can go and buy lots of different kinds of fruit, but. Again, it's just the way we are living is so unhygienic in so many different ways. The
Yeah.
philosophically incorrect. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough. I don't know where we begin and how we change the tide of how things are going and how we get people get closer to Eden type lifestyle. But yeah.
But hey, man, I mean, that kind of leads us up to a good ending point. My phone is kind of getting to
Okay, true.
uh being dead soon, but it was like we said in our last conversation that um we had the other night. It's like the cancer will eat itself if you fast. And I feel like that's kind of like what's gonna happen in society and the world in a whole is like all this destruction and the pollution from all of these things, like it will consume itself and just fall in on itself eventually. And that's this is what we're talking about right now, the the cultivation of life, and that's the way, that's the truth, the life, and the way. And like when you said the the tree of life, really interesting because at the very end of the Bible, we don't we'll take like all the things about sacrifice and all the rules about eating meat. Oh, it just says, you can't eat pork and all these things, but at the very end, in the new earth, there's only going to be one fruit per month. It's going to change every month, and the tree life's going to bear a different fruit for each month of the year. But I mean, like I'm pretty excited if that is true. Like that. If imagine you just have a different kind of fruit to eat every month.
I think there's more. What do you mean by that? I think there's more variety of fruit coming out per month. Like lots of fruits come out together. What do you mean by that? The 1 month thing?
I'm just speaking hypothetically. Like
Oh, I think his phone turned off. So we're gonna go ahead and end the stream here. Thank you for tuning in, folks. Yeah. So if the world is gonna go towards a better direction, the inhabitants better start cleaning themselves and living a more hygienic lifestyle. Thank you.